and then we'll officially start. Unless it's going to cause problems, in which case I'm glad that we're recording separately. Because if the live stream doesn't start probably within 15 seconds, I know that they're going to have problems again. Here it goes. Awesome. Okay, things are good. Hello and welcome to the Music Publishing Podcast. I'm joined today by the wonderful Angela Myles Beeching. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Nice to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. I'm a big fan of your book. I was saying right before we came on, I've had it for years and I can't finish it. I get half a page and I get so inspired by what you're saying that I put it down and I run off and I do stuff. And then I come back and then I can't even get through the half a page because I'm inspired again to go run off and do stuff.
That was my goal, to make people not read.
To make more music.
Right.
Yeah, it's a nice consistent kick in the pants every time I pick it up.
Thanks.
So for anybody who lives under a rock, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a bit about your background.
Sure. So I'm Angela Beeching, and I started out as a cellist, and I never in a million years imagined that I would work in career services or entrepreneurship, but that is what I have done. And I wrote the book Beyond Talent out of frustration, because at the time there was nothing like this. And I found myself, at the time I was working at New England Conservatory, and I had all these students and alumni asking questions about careers, how do they get started? And there was really no source for that. So I really wrote the book out of frustration. And it's gone through 2 editions, 2 revisions, and I'm working on the 3rd now.
Nice.
But as I said, I started out as a cellist, and I never intended to do this kind of work. So, but it's a happy accident, because I find that I'm really fascinated by the process of helping people move forward in their careers, because each musician is so completely different, and what will help them, what their obstacles are, what they perceive as challenges. It's fascinating work, and I love helping people.
And any advice is always, it's never one size fits all. It's always your mileage may vary. I find.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's true. So I at New England Conservatory, I was the director of the Career Services Center. Then for a while, I did work at Indiana University, helping them start their entrepreneurship program. And most recently, I was at Manhattan School of Music as the director of the Center for Music Entrepreneurship. And just recently, at the end of June, I went rogue. So I'm a full-time consultant and writer, and I work with individuals and ensembles and institutions.
Nice. So when you were building these entrepreneurship programs and working in those, how do those, I never had that. I'm just a hair too old to have experienced a lot of those sorts of things. So what do they look like for those of us who haven't experienced them?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people, when they're in school and they're just taking care of the basics, they may just think, oh, it's the place where I can get help if I'm going to be applying for a grant, or I want to start booking my own ensemble, or I just need someone to give me advice on this application or cover letter or CV, that kind of thing. But we've had these kinds of offices can help people with fundraising projects. Look at this cat.
This is Pistachio. He wants attention right now.
His name is Pistachio?
Yeah.
It's a great name.
I know.
Yeah, very, very good. So most career centers don't have cats, as far as I know. They're a loss. But and many schools have courses now connected to entrepreneurship. Many schools also offer seed money and competitions for projects and mentoring all those good things. We, at NEC and at all the schools I've worked with, we had workshops where we bring back alums to talk about interesting projects,
Nice.
how they've managed their careers. And I know you've gone back to your alma mater and
A couple of times.
talks too. So yeah, it really helps. I think certainly when I was in school, this is just the stuff that people didn't talk about. And when I was a grad student, I actually complained. This was at Stony Brook in on Long Island. I complained because there wasn't specialized help around this. And there was the general university's career center, but nothing specific for the music department. So I complained to the chair of the department, and he said, write us a proposal. And I didn't know what a proposal was, but I wrote something up, and they read it. They said, fine, we're going to make this your teaching assistantship. You get to start this thing. Oh. So I was not the response I expected, and they got very motivated cheap labor, me. I learned a ton, but the whole time my goal was to get a university tenure track fellow and play a lot of chamber music. That was the thing I really wanted to do. And I always tell people I'm living proof that sometimes you get exactly what you wanted, because I had those kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
And I got burnt out. I found that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do next? I moved back to Boston. I was there for a while, and this job at NEC opened up in career services. And because I'd had that experience as a grad student, I thought, well, I could try this for a couple of years. And I was there for 17 because I fell in love with this kind of work.
Nice.
So, yeah, stranger things have happened.
And you seem to be pretty good at this kind of work too.
Yeah, what's weird is that it's like chamber music in some ways in my head. There's this idea of working closely with musicians, sort of teasing out ideas, trying to figure out how they're looking at things. There's something very inventive and kind of detective-like in this work.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Nice. So these programs have proliferated, and they seem like they're generally doing a ton of good. I know that there are people who are like, no, entrepreneurship, bad.
Well, I reread recently some of the pushback that was, there were some great articles in New Music Box. Andrew Lee and who was the other guy? Oh, I want to say Andrew Gervais.
Aaron Gervais, yeah, he's written some stuff.
Yeah, so they brought up really good points. I think in some ways, entrepreneurship has become a kind of poster child, and of course, it is not the answer to all of the issues around supply and demand and all of this.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of there are many ways of interpreting the idea of entrepreneurship, and there are reasons why people can feel like, oh, someone is presenting this as a Band-Aid to some problems. And I can hear all of that. I get it. I think the challenge for any of us is to figure out what's a way that I can make meaningful work happen for myself, and what are tools that are going to help me get there. And I have to have my eyes clearly open about the amount of debt I have, the value of what I bring to the table, and the good I can do. So I'm all in favor for this. I think the word is problematic, and schools, of course, are slow to react to the marketplace, but people are trying. So I think the more alums who are willing to work with their alma maters and be a resource and try to help connect this up, I think it's better for everybody.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I know that talking to students at my alma mater or talking to other alums, that we all have our ways that we've come out of school and dealt with their careers. And there's no one answer, and there's no one path with being entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And I had I spent a little bit of time actually in the comment section of the Music Spoke blog, talking about this recently, saying basically entrepreneurship, like those, you gain skills and at certain times, so that I may have a lot of skill writing a fugue, but that's not going to help me to build a house.
Yeah.
And or tools. I have a hammer. I know how to use it. It's not going to help me write a fugue. And entrepreneurship skills, they're going to help you with X, Y, and Z. With some marketing, with promotion, with time management and all of that. But it's not going to help you write your music.
Yeah.
That's a different skill set.
Yeah. I think about this a lot in terms of when is the right time for people to be gaining certain skills, and when are they ready? Because for many people while they're in school, they're maxed out with really just dealing with the artistry and the skill and the craft of what they're working on. And I think the toughest thing right now is just the cost of education. Because people are coming out with these massive debts, and it means it scrunches the time that you have to make really tough decisions about what you're investing in and what your options are. But I think that there's a way to do this. There's so much attention paid to the idea of entrepreneurial mindset, and I think there's a lot of good that can come with this, but it needs to be attached to concrete skills that are marketable. And so, and also not just the knowledge or understanding of the initiative, but the actual willingness to take that on. So, I'm just wondering, Dennis, for you, are there skills that you wished you had learned when you were in school?
Oh, man. Yeah, all of them. All of them. Now, oh goodness. I think for me, it would have been really helpful to understand how to reach out both effectively and confidently. I think for me, I'm always reticent to reach out. I still, to this day, I'm working through this. You
mean from a networking point of view, or communicating with audiences, or what?
From a networking, reaching out to an ensemble or reaching out to a performer who's not currently within my network, and trying to get to know them.
I think that's why this podcast is the best thing.
I know. This forces me to reach out to people.
Yes, yeah.
I was who was I talking to recently, saying that, like, in my wildest dreams, if I weren't doing this podcast, I would have felt so weird emailing you. Yeah. To say, hi, can we talk? Unless I was really coming to the table with, like, here's money for, to hire you full on. This kind of gives me an excuse to be able to talk to a broader range of people.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic. There's this thing in coaching about, turn the problem into the opportunity. And that is really it. You make it into a way that works for you. And I think that's a perfect, it's a perfect example of an entrepreneurial action that's helpful. So not just for you, but for other people. So
yeah.
Great. Cool.
Awesome. So now with your consulting, what do you do? Who do you work with, and what's your process?
Yeah. Most of my clients have been sort of in the 30, 40 year range. I don't know why. That's kind of who I'm getting, and really interesting range of people from instrumentalists to vocalists to composers. You know, you name it. I've had singer-songwriters. You know, a couple of jazz people, mainly classical, whatever that means these days.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the thing that's great is, of course, the usual thing is people are stuck in some way in their career. They want to be moving faster. They want to be advancing. Either they're looking for more prestigious opportunity or to make some sort of shift. And they often feel like there's a specific problem that they're looking to overcome. But of course, in the process of this, we end up talking about all kinds of things. And it's so fascinating to find that sometimes there's just a little mindset thing that seems to be hung up, and we're teasing that out. And then you start to see, you know, traction. So I'll give you this example, because I still think was just fascinating for me. Had this wonderful client who, she has a duo, and she was looking to get more prestigious bookings, and they do a lot of new music and very interesting stuff that's digital related and just fun. But she you know, she felt like her web presence and the way she was reaching out to presenters wasn't as effective as she wanted it to be. So in this process, as she's revamping her website and all of these materials, we're trying to get down to what is distinctive, what is really special about what she has to offer. And this is inevitable when you have these kind of conversations with people. Ooh, somebody's trying to reach me. We have these kind of connections with people, is that they start to get more centered in terms of who they are, what they have to offer. And it means that when they're connecting with people, they're coming across in a more immediate, you know, impactful way. So we weren't very far into this process. She has a combination of career. She's a performer and she's a teacher, and she was working at a sort of regional conservatory in France. And she got offered this like substantially better teaching gig in the middle of this process. And, you know, we're both sitting there thinking, this is not a coincidence, you know. You know, it was just, you know, it's like you're walking taller, you're you know, making changes. And that's the kind of thing that I love to see, because it's a little bit like helping people align with their real purpose and feel more confident about how they present themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, with some of the composers I've been working with, and I love these, you know, people, I'm so, it's heartwarming for me that people are willing to open up about their creative process, because all of us have challenges. You know, I'm in the middle of writing, you know, this third edition, and I've got days when I'm like pulling out my hair and nothing's coming and, you know, whatever. So you know, I have a lot of sympathy for, you know, and empathy for people in these situations. But it's fascinating to hear how many people are struggling with a way to get at their creative work in an immediate and concentrated way, and deal with all the other distractions and be able to sort of tune it out. And that really, before you can work on the promoting your career and all this other stuff, you got to figure out, okay, am I able to get that work done?
Yeah.
So it's been really fascinating for me as we're sort of talking through and experimenting with different ways to manage and block time, deal with distractions, and just sort of think through your purpose.
Yeah. I think in this day and age, it's very easy to get distracted, or to feel like you're pulled in so many different directions at once that, what do I work on? Do I do the creative? Oh, pistachio. He really wants attention. Do I do the creative work? Do I do the admin? Do I do the marketing? Do I do this thing over there that makes me money that I don't like, but helps pay the bills?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then the awful thing is we're all plagued by those, negative, that self-talk in your head. That's, that you're editing your stuff as you're writing. It's so not helpful.
Oh, I know. Former teacher of mine used to talk about the way that he and some of his teachers thought about, well, you're just climbing up there, aren't you? Thought about their writing process, that it was basically three different seated positions. One leaning forward in the phrase, in whatever the notes. Then there's sitting up and looking at the section.
Yeah.
And then leaning back and looking at the whole. And it's really, it can be deadly when you're bringing the critical voice into the forward seated position. You gotta go down.
Yeah.
Oh, he does not want to. Okay. You can.
Yeah. Or the fourth, when your head is on the table.
Yeah.
And you're counting.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, this is terrible. I'm not going to remember this composer's name, but I'll send it to you afterwards. This wonderful guy that I met when I was speaking at the Imani Winds Chamber Music Festival, because they have a composition aspect of it. Anyway, he wrote to me afterwards and said that his teacher, his former teacher, had this wonderful way of describing when he thought really the best of the music that he had written, like what the purpose was. And it was, he said, like, the way to judge it ultimately is if it makes the performers feel better about themselves.
I like that.
And I thought this was such a fabulous thing, because and when I first heard about it, it was teasing, it was in the back of my mind, and I'm thinking, God, is that always the case? Because when you've got a really tough score that you've just like killed yourself for 20 hours, like trying to decipher, do you feel better about yourself? And the conclusion I came to is, like if you've mastered that thing, and you've sort of figured out how this piece works, it's like it's part of you in a special way.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about that idea, and I wrote back to the composer because I thought, really, we could look at any of our jobs that way, is to help the other person feel better about themselves, because how's the world going to get any better if we don't do that?
Exactly.
But it's such a I don't think it's really selfless. But it's a very generous way of thinking about the purpose of the work that you're making. So
and generosity is an idea that keeps coming back and back and back on this show. It's an idea that I really like. And
good.
With my own music, I tend to aim for a reward, like not like, oh, let's give the audience a reward or a little bit of a rest finally, but having a sense of this being a rewarding experience of, there's all the difficult stuff. And when it comes together, that it feels rewarding. It feels like you've come through it, and it's a positive I did something with this.
Right.
And that's it. When I perform, like, that's what I want.
Yeah. It's a funny thing because of the time that we spend with a work, this is about not just making convincing structure that you feel like you've landed in a new place, but that you've genuinely been a part of something. I think that's actually that's when I hear reward this way, I think about it like you have to really be participating to that. And I think that's what audiences these days are looking for more and more, not a passive experience, but something that is really involving. So I was at a concert just this last week in Boston, because there's a new music festival that's just starting. This was the first annual. So they're taking all of the new music groups in the Boston area and kind of making a mini festival that each one of them was participating. And there's something like 35 new music groups. I mean, it's a crazy number.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you heard anything about this, but Matty Kovler, the composer, he does a lot of musical theater stuff, and he's Brooklyn based, but he went to school in Boston. Anyway, he had an excerpt. No, this wasn't an excerpt. It's a 15-minute opera that is about Melania Trump and the two ex-wives. And this is the best part. He has a part in there for countertenor. Trump's hair is played by a countertenor. And it was just a fabulous concert because everything on this concert was just so intriguing. There's a guy who played a big chunk of styrofoam with a cello bow. A composer who's this improvised piece. You could not imagine the sounds that he was getting out of this thing, and the whole audience was enthralled for like 3 or 4 minutes listening to this thing. And Julian Walkner, at Trinity Music, I think that's the church, Trinity Music in New York, way down near Wall Street. He has a new opera being premiered this next year, and they did one aria from it, and it was amazing.
Nice.
So I was so happy. I don't get to a ton of concerts these days, really, mainly because I'm too busy writing. That's a bad thing. But it's so wonderful to go to a concert where there's this unexpected stuff. I think that's the most fabulous thing that really gets you listening in a new way.
Yeah, totally. And not just like the same old that's being
and it makes you excited for the future of music, because I just thought it was great.
Yeah, that sounds. I wish that I had seen that. Hopefully I'll get to see the Melania.
Yeah. Well, I can send you a link. They had like a promo of it. So
oh, great.
Yeah, and after tomorrow we'll find out if there'll be an extension.
Oh, this election cycle needs to end. And it will. It will.
Yeah. Yep.
So, with all the consulting you do and working with composers, you mentioned that some of the issues that you come up with are like time management and like, creating creative blocks. What's some of your advice on that, and maybe some of the other topics that continually come up with composers?
Yeah. Well, just in terms of managing time, the idea of creating time blocks so that you can look at your weekly schedule and figure out, well, when do I have blocks of time for composing, and are those in the ideal spots? If you have discretionary time during the day, when does it make sense to do this? And with people and with myself lately, the idea of creating some kind of ritual before you start, and this is to help you get centered, to get in the right frame of mind. If you've got a ton of negative thoughts running in your head, like, oh my God, this isn't going well, I'm so afraid about this deadline, all of that stuff happening. I had a mentor once who suggested write it all by hand on a piece of paper, like take dictation with all of the, horrible stuff that's going on in your head that you're telling yourself. Get it out on the page, and then don't read it, but burn it or shred it. Nice. So this idea of like really purging it and saying, okay, now I got that cleaned out of my head and I'm ready to sit down and do the work. So if your starting time in the morning is 9 a.m., it might mean that at 8, you have to figure out, okay, I need to have my coffee before I start. I need to take a walk. I need to, do this. But the biggest thing is to not sleep with your cell phone. And to, if you have it turned off or charging in the other room, then, and you don't sort of pollute your mind with any of that stuff before you start. No texting, no instant messaging, no phone calls, whatever. the chance of you being able to sit down and really focus go up astronomically.
Hmm.
So I think for many people, like the habits around social media and, emails and everything, and the compulsiveness around that is really is a big issue.
Yeah.
So the other thing that people do is use the Pomodoro technique. You know what that is, with the
Yeah.
tomato kitchen timer, 20 minutes. And I'm a big fan of being very intentional. So if you know that you're working or trying to solve a problem with a certain phrase, and you say, okay, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes on this, and just focus on that. And when the 20 minutes are done, you'll either have something, or you'll be into it and be able to go further, or you'll have done something and say to yourself, I can come back to this later, like I know where I am.
Yeah.
But sometimes we tell ourselves we're working and focused, and we're not. Yeah. So I think it's about getting real about that stuff.
I know one of my terrible habits right now. Oh, sorry, can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
Right now. I start my day with the phone.
Yeah.
Like it's actually a chunk of time.
Yeah.
Email, games, just something.
Right.
And then I'm a little scattered for a while.
Yeah. So think about that. I mean, even if you just experimented for a week to see what would happen if you said to yourself, I'm not doing any online stuff until whatever you can make it. You can make it 10:30, you can make it 11. Like, you can actually get a lot of your work done, your priority work done first. We think that the world is going to blow up if we don't respond to something, and people will get used to it. They can wait a couple hours before they hear from you, right?
Totally.
So it's not Putin on the other end, usually. Yeah.
I really like the idea of having a ritual before starting a particular task. That's something I've done some reading about, habits and habit stacking, and that usually it's like that signifier to say once you've gotten into this habit,
right,
it puts you in the mindset that you want to be in.
Yeah, and that's really true. Otherwise, we're waking up in the morning and we're thinking, oh my God, what do I have to do today? And you have to make a whole series of decisions that already feels onerous, as opposed to if for the week your writing time, is in the morning, 9 to 10:30 or whatever it is, you've got that blocked out, and you don't have to make up your mind. You just have to sit down and do it. You have to do something, though, for basically a month in a row before it becomes a real habit. So you have to give yourself a chance on that. But yeah, I think it's really important. I think there's other things you can schedule. I used to resist this because I thought, I don't want to be living according to some, regimented thing. But there's a relief in knowing there's a certain day in the week when I take care of this errand, because it works out better and leaves me free. Like, I really know when the free time is. So yeah, I think there's some advantages.
Yeah, totally. And with the habit, trying to form habits, letting yourself off the hook if you screw up once, but then getting back on the horse.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Because then the more you don't do it, the more it becomes a non-habit again.
Yeah. So it can help to have an accountability buddy to check in on you. And sometimes people work better, in a room with someone else working. And some people do work better if they're in a coffee shop. So, to figure out where is best for you. I think it makes sense.
I did so much, like 2007, 2008. I spent a lot of time in coffee shops composing. Like, I had my earbuds in and I was composing directly into Sibelius. But I wrote a whole song cycle, and just did so much great stuff with the ambient annoying music and people being around me, and it worked really well. And right now I work out of my apartment, and so it's me and the cats, and that's not working as well.
So maybe you want to go back to the coffee house. My experience with that is sometimes a certain amount of nearby distraction forces you to really focus in on what you're doing. So it works as like a contrast or like a barrier to help you know I'm really on this.
Yeah.
So I would say do it if bring the cats to the bring the cats with you.
Leave them home. They've been in so much trouble lately. Oh my God, we got back from our honeymoon on October 1st. We waited a year to do it. And
Congratulations.
and I said, I'm gonna get back, and I'm like I'm gonna change my day around. I'm gonna do more of this like block thing.
Yeah.
And then the first thing, one gets sick, and so I've got then the other one gets sick, and then I had a week 2 weeks ago. Every day I got blindsided by something new. And I'm like, no, stop it. It can be very difficult. And so now that the cats are healthy again, they can stay home. I'll go out to the coffee shop and work. Hopefully accomplish something again.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm also thinking about people who know they have to have something done by a certain date, and they figure out, okay, how many measures is that? How much am I going to have to crank out per day, per week? There's nothing like, getting that real with yourself. So, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I've always
the other thing I was gonna. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I've always sort of liked the idea of, I would like to really be able to sit down every day and give myself several hours and come up with so much. And if you are able to consistently create, if you do the math of like, okay, I'll write 15 seconds of music a day, and maybe that's your goal, and some days you'll reach it. Sometimes some days you'll only get 10 seconds, some days you'll get a whole minute. But if you do like just the simple math of, all right, if I do this 5 days a week, take the weekends off, give myself some vacation time too, you end up with so much music. I think it's if you write a minute a day for 5 days a week, 50 weeks of the year, you end up with 4 hours of music.
Yeah, it's
in a
amazing.
year. And and if you can create those habits, and you're going to have different days of productivity.
Absolutely. So you've read Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art, yes?
I've read about half of it.
Oh, I love that book.
It's on my phone.
Okay. Yeah, get to the last part, because even though he's got a kind of spiritual woo-woo, approach to this, don't let that bother you. I've told other people this too, because you can interpret that in so many different ways that's really helpful for getting past resistance. And I just love his very kind of working class, what is he has this wonderful phrase about the lunch pail, hard hat, straightforward approach. And I just think that that's so helpful.
Yeah, I like the workman-like approach to creating. You show up at your desk and you write, and you're only going to improve. Yeah,
I think it's good. The other thing I was going to say, Dennis, is that, and this is something that I find all musicians have trouble with, is introducing themselves and talking about why they do what they do. So this makes writing a bio agony, and it really makes for composers describing their own music just torturous. So hard. So I did write this series for New Music Box, which just started. There's a series of 4 articles. So I'll be so interested if your listeners have thoughts. I have to say, it took me so many hours to find examples that I thought were really good, because there's so much bad stuff out there. And it's awful, because we we look to models that really aren't that good. So we kind of figure, okay, this is the norm. But if you're trying to describe what your music is like and maybe why you write, and describe it in a way that a non-musician would find engaging, or a concert presenter or a performer in an ensemble would get intrigued and say, oh, I'd like to have a conversation with that composer. Like that takes some thinking, but it also takes setting aside the jargon and the analytical stuff that we've all grown up with. And also all of the ego stuff, the comparison trap, all of that craziness.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just have to say it's not an easy thing, but I just find it so worthwhile when you read a description of a composer's music. All you've got is the words, and you absolutely say to yourself, I have got to hear this. I am so curious about it. If it's a call to action, if it makes you want to click play, then you've really done something.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading these posts.
Well, I'm hoping that there's also some pushback, or some people saying, hey, this is a great one, pointing me in some more directions, because I'm telling you, I looked for hours and hours. But it was interesting, the inventiveness of the ones that do work. They're not all of the same model. And also, when you look at an example of one that you think is working, it's not something that you can copy. It's not about great adjectives, So I think it is about, asking yourself. Sometimes people are very reluctant to try to describe all of their music, and that's, of course, intimidating. But you can talk about the most recent project or the kinds of things that you've been more fascinated with lately in your music. You can also talk about what first turned you on to composing, or what is it that you listen for, either as you're writing, like, how do you conceive of this? I think for some people it's a little bit of a spooky thing, because it's their creativity and they kind of don't want to, mess with the mojo there. And I get that, but I think there's other angles that you could look at this that's doesn't feel so invasive. Gives the reader a sense of who you are as a real person. And if it makes them want to have a conversation with you, that is a great starting point.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are a lot of different ways you can come at it, like obliquely, that don't feel so.
Yeah. Yeah. So you must have some good examples. So listen, after we do this, if you can send me some that you've liked, I would love to see them. And anybody else who's watching or listening. Yeah.
I'll have to look at some things, and I've seen some bad ones.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to point those out. Yeah, I love it. Sometimes you don't know what they're describing. It's just so it's so obtuse and multisyllabic, and you're thinking, wow, are we talking about plumbing here or music? So
So what are some little tips you would think of to maybe come at this from a different angle?
I usually say to people when they're thinking about writing a bio to start just by making a list of things that could possibly be in the bio. And they could just be an idea for an anecdote, things about your musical training, pieces, the most unusual pieces that you've written because they may trigger ideas in your head. The other thing that can help is to think about how people have described your music back to you, especially non-musicians. And what I find is when people are at their own concerts of their own works, you're on some kind of weird strange zone where, after the concert, people are telling you nice things and you don't really hear most of them. And, so that's part of it, to start trying to remember some of those comments, because sometimes the most intriguing, even kind of offbeat things that you might have gotten, especially after people have heard recordings or whatever, and you start to think, oh, I've heard stuff like that before. What does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it may give you ideas for, phrases and parts of this that you can use. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the origin story about how you became a musician, or what turned you on to music, or maybe what the first piece of music that really moved you, what that felt like, may also help you lead into, why do you write?
Yeah.
So why do you write, Dennis?
Why do I write? I write because I have to. I think that's what we all say. Like, I write because it's there. I write because I want to. Well, I write what I want to hear. It's that Ned Rorem thing: write what you want to hear. I write the music that other people can't give me.
Yeah. And if you feel like a piece is coming on, what does that feel like, or what happens?
Oh, sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Lots of, actually, just the other day, I was walking down the street and got a little thing in my head, and I had to just whip out the phone and type it in.
Yeah.
Just,
And so what you got, a piece of a phrase or a gesture or a harmonic
a little accompaniment
progression.
Little accompaniment pattern that just showed up. Oh, there's so much that you can do with that. It can turn into this, it can turn into that, and then it can inform the whole piece. Just
wow.
It's immediately I'm developing ideas.
Yeah. Now, neat. It's like I don't remember who this was. That there was a woman who was a poet who described a poem coming at her. Actually, it's in Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic. Which also is a terrific book about creativity. And she's describing a poet who would be like running in a field, getting home as fast as she could in order to write down this poem, because it was like going to blast through her. So that's a cool thing. But, Dennis, even your description of this and the idea that it was this fragment, kind of a groove that you were going to play with, that told me a lot about kind of who you are, and how all encompassing this experience is of receiving something. And that's a neat thing to know. What you want to realize is your audience is fascinated by this kind of stuff, because they don't have that experience, and they're wondering, where does this music come from? So I'm thinking, it may be like 5 years from now, everyone will just have video bios, and it'd be a cool thing just to have this little bit of a someone just telling you, hey, this is why I write.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Describing it. Yeah,
I'm gonna make a note of that. One thing that I do, that I try to use it in like program notes now, and I think it could turn into some interesting stuff with bios and everything. I keep development diaries, and I've mentioned these before. And actually, I know there's a composer friend of mine who heard about that idea here, and he's doing it for some of his own works. But I think that can be a nice entree for people to see what the process is. And you can cull from those to tell your story, really.
Yeah. So Morton Gould did something like this when he was winning one of these big awards. He sent, I don't know, I blogged about this because his daughter, actually, this is so funny. Jeffrey James, who's a publicist for a lot of new music groups, he had read one of my blog posts and said, which was about creative blocks. And he put me in touch with Morton Gould's daughter, who had this this thing, and she sent it to me. She sent to me a PDF of it, and he had made this diary of his process before a deadline, and like, completely dry, no ideas, he's like ready to kill himself, and then you see these changes, and then like stuff's coming at him too fast, and it's a very shortened version of a diary, but fascinating in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's a great thing.
It's something that I'm actually going to be putting in the backs of the scores as well. I'll shorten it, collect it, put in a couple of pages of like the manuscript, and
yeah,
I talk about it. It's DVD extras.
Yeah. Well, Jeff Nitch did a kind of diary like that for that symphony that he wrote that had this geological formation thing. This was in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay.
Do you know about this?
No.
He did and maybe you want to interview him at some point. He's a neat guy. He runs the Entrepreneurship Center there, but he's a composer.
Okay.
And he collaboration between the Geological Society, which was having like a big annual convention, writing a piece that was around the geology of the area. So it was based on these ideas, and it was a joint commission with the Boulder Symphony, I think it was.
Oh, cool.
So in leading up to the premiere, it was like a video diary of his process.
Nice.
Which was fascinating. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, that thing about getting it in the score is terrific too. So
yeah, I think that's
cool.
kind of a fun thing. There's an author who I follow some of his work, and he live vlogs. He's got like YouTube streaming thing going while he's writing his drafts. And
oh my God.
And and he's doing is that the whole process is like online. You can watch him write a novel, and his fans eat it up. They love it because they can see on his face when he figured something out, if he's having a problem, and he's talking it through too. So he's talking into the ether, or to his fans really, about oh, I'm having this problem right now, I don't know, and he'll just talk it out, and then oh wait. That's cool. That's a cool little thing.
I wouldn't want anyone doing that with me because there would be too much cursing.
Well, we know that there would be a ton of cursing if it was me, because this show has an explicit rating for a reason.
Yeah, wow. What can you do?
Oh. So another topic that you mentioned, but
I was gonna say before we close, I don't know if there's another topic too, but I want to make sure that I make this available to people if they want to do.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up.
Like to do one of these, complimentary consultations. I'm happy to do like a 30-minute thing with people, and all they have to do is write to me on my site. It's angelabeeching.com, and Beeching has 2 E's. And they'll find a place on the page and just say, I saw you with Dennis. I would love to, do one of these half-hour things, and then we can talk about, their kind of career situation, and maybe hopefully give a few ideas, and also let them know about coaching if they might be interested in that. So happy to do that. We can do that for a month. So we'll do that until December, what did we say, 14th, 15th?
Yeah, I think the 14th we said.
Yeah. So up until December 14th. This will come out on
November 14th. So
yeah. Days. So up until December 14th, 2016. Happy to do that.
Awesome. That's wonderful and so generous. Thank you for offering.
Oh yeah, happy to do that. Good.
Cool. So sorry, every so often I get my voice. Do we want to touch a little bit on networking to wrap things up?
Oh, sure. Since I know it's your favorite topic. Yeah, I have to say, because the Chamber Music America conference is coming up in January.
Mhm.
And I just have to say that this is probably one of the best conferences that I know of for composers. And it might seem like an unlikely thing, but they always do like the ASCAP Awards. There's usually a BMI reception. And it's a small enough conference that people really do get to see each other and get to talk in between sessions and whatever. That's the first place I met Alex Shapiro.
Great.
Yeah. So I mean, and there are composers who come who, as Alex has done for a number of years, they get one of the booths. You can, rent, purchase, whatever, a spot in the conference the way the artist managers do. Only you're there as a composer and you can meet with people. You show your scores. You have stuff that people can listen to. It's one way to connect with not only with a bunch of chamber players, but also with presenters and managers, and just to be more a part of the community, because it's very easy to feel isolated in the work that we do, in the creative work that we do. And this business about how are you going to connect with people who could play your music, who could champion your music, and how are you going to gather more ideas for potential collaborations or just artistic ideas. They have fabulous showcasing of new works. There's always sessions that explain how the CMA commissioning grants operate and how you can apply for those. And you can talk with people who have gotten those grants and find out how to do better. So I really do recommend it. And if you've got any people listening or watching who are still in school, it is dirt cheap to go as a student. I think it was like $25 or $35. I mean, so really no excuse if you're in New York or you have friends that you can crash on a couch. I would really take advantage of that. The other thing I would say about networking is my experience is most people feel like networking is about schmoozing someone in a position of authority and trying to get them to give you something or do something for you. So that makes them feel icky because like, oh, I'm trying to manipulate someone or I'm pushing my agenda on someone, and it just doesn't feel good. And I think when you have that instinct, that's important, because real networking is not about manipulating people or asking for something inappropriate or just, you wouldn't run up to someone on the street and say, hey, can you get married to me? Like that, it's a courting process, right? So if you want someone to know about your music and it's a player whose work you admire, you need to get to know that person. So going to their concerts and talking to them afterwards, and not having the first thing out of your mouth be, I'm a composer, here's my card, let me send you a score. I mean, because that's what we're afraid we're going to turn into, that guy or that girl. And you don't have to do it that way. I mean, networking is really about feeling like there's a community and wanting to be the person that you want to be in that community. And instead of saying, well, the person I really want to be is just very shy and stay to myself. No. The person I want to be is someone who can be of service to other people, someone who takes an interest in other people, someone who collaborates. So taking an interest in what other people are doing is probably the best tip I can give anyone for networking. Because when you show interest in their stuff, they're also going to be curious about you. And you don't know what's possible from that, but you want to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah. Totally.
So I always think about the first couple times I went to any sort of conference, or me, at a reception after a concert. I am not an extrovert, and I definitely get shy in these, big situations. And there's always someone out there like, hi, how are you? Being like, shaking everybody's hand. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I, just can't do this. So I'll go to the food line or the drink line, and I'll find someone else who looks a little bit disenfranchised like me. And, we'll talk about the weather to start with, or I'll ask, how's this going for you? Have you been to this before? And chances are you just end up having a conversation with someone. You don't know what's going to happen from this. I've had so many really interesting conversations with presenters or composers or other people that I wouldn't have imagined, but I kind of pushed myself to start.
Mm-hmm.
So just start.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I frequently, like, more and more, I find myself being like the one with the drink kind of off to the side, like everybody else is so free and easy, and I've lost this. What happened to me in the past 10 years?
Oh. No, just find someone else who's not, well, there's two things. You can find someone else who's alone or someone else who's waiting in the line and just start something up.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can look for a group that's not just two people. So, and if you stand a little bit to the side of the group, you'll tell by body language whether someone is going to open up and let you in.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time they will, and they'll include you in. And if they don't, you don't take this personally. You just say, hey, they're preoccupied. I mean, I don't, you just have to move on to something else.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to play a game with myself. I would say before an event like that, I would say, I want to have a conversation with 3 people. And as long as I wasn't saying 15, I mean, I'm like, okay, 3, I can do 3. And then I can leave if I'm too nervous. Right. So it can be good to set a benchmark goal there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're not setting the goal, I'm going to get 3 commissions.
Right. Right.
3
exactly.
performances. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I'm just going to talk to 3 people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. People they want, their expectations are way beyond what's actually possible. Because if you think about what it would take to go from, I don't know this person at all, to a commission, that is a courtship process, and it's real. You can't rush from A to Z. So, yeah. Good.
Yeah, totally. Well, we're just over the hour mark here. So, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm just curious, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I am attempting to finish a small orchestra piece. I've had it on the back burner for most of the summer, for it, kind of a good high school level group. It's going to be a gift to my high school orchestra director.
Oh, nice. So do you have a deadline?
No, she doesn't know it's coming.
Okay.
So I'm just writing it. But I'm stuck on this one section, and I have to power through it.
Yeah, good. I'm just going to say, youth orchestras, that is such a missed opportunity for so many composers, because they often get more rehearsal time, better quality recordings, like the whole 9 yards. And I'm just thinking, wow. I mean, the idea of being sort of a composer in residence for, one of those elite youth orchestras could be really good.
Oh, yeah, those sound like they're great.
Yeah. No, so think about it, because I mean, it sounds like you're onto something there.
Yeah, I know that particular niche is badly underserved.
Yeah.
My former orchestra director, she has such a tough time finding interesting reps. So I said, well, I'll do it.
Yeah. Good. Now you got me curious. I want to hear. So neat.
Sweet. Cool. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I totally appreciate your offer to the listeners. That's fantastic. I hope they all take you up on that. So I'm
Yeah,
going to do
no,
my
my
little,
pleasure.
yeah. So let's make sure we know where they go for that and where they can find you in general.
Oh, sure. AngelaBeeching.com, and Beeching has two E's. And I wrote the book Beyond Talent. You can easily find that online as well. But
That's
yeah, through my website, easiest way to reach me.
sweet. Awesome. So stick around for a second. I'm going to do my little call to action, and then
Great.
we'll go to the green room again.
Sure.
So everybody, call to action this week is email Angela. Do it. This is an opportunity that you should not miss. She's fantastic at what she does, and you should totally take advantage of this amazing opportunity. And that's it. So thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you next time.